Hello and welcome to today's video. In today's video we're going to make a Jack Skellington bust from A Nightmare Before Christmas out of black and white Worbla. Alright, let's head down to the arts table and get started. Alright, I've got my supplies ready. I've got some different reference pictures of some Jack busts that I found on the internet. I have my foil sheets. I've got a piece of concrete I'm going to use to weight it, and my foam and my Worbla. So I'm going to take the foil sheets and wrap it around the piece of concrete and build it up into the shape I want for the bust. Then I'm going to take my black foam and wrap that around, and I'm going to go ahead and use my duct tape to tape it on there to build up a good base for the body. Now, the reason why I used the concrete on there is I was afraid he was going to be a little bit off weight with his, pretty good sized head, so I wanted to make sure it was a nice solid and sturdy piece. Now that I've got the body done, I went ahead and shaped out the foil into the head, the neck, and the head for the bat bow tie. Looking on here, it looks like my proportions are pretty good, so I'm going to start covering the body with the Worbla. So I'm using black Worbla, obviously, on the body. So I'm just trimming that out. I'm going to go ahead and I will heat it up with my heat gun. I do use the high setting for the black Worbla. And then I'll start applying it around the body. So I'm going to go ahead and cover this entire piece with the black Worbla. And the black Worbla, when you heat it up, it does, or any Worbla, it does kind of sink around all the crevices and, kind of gets a lot of that detail underneath. But I'm going to use a ball tool, smooth it out. So I'm pretty happy with the look of it. Now I'm going to cut out some white Worbla and use that for his chest area. So I'm just getting this proportioned out, heat it up, wrap it around. Now it does have an edge here that I don't want, but I'm going to be covering that up with his collar, so that won't be noticeable after I get the collar on there. So I'm just finishing heating this up, making sure it looks okay. Now I went ahead and covered his neck with some white Worbla. I'm going to heat up the top of it, and I'm going to go ahead and press the neck in place. Now I wanted to make sure this was nice and sturdy on there and give it a little bit of a transition to the body, so I heated up a little strip of white Worbla. Now I do heat up the white Worbla on the low setting of the heat gun because I don't want to burn it and discolor it. So I've got this snake of Worbla, wrap that around the base of the neck. Go ahead and heat that up and smooth that in with my ball tool. And this will bond those pieces together a little bit better. Now that I'm happy with that, I'm going to go ahead and make my collar for the Jack bust. So I'm just cutting out a piece of Worbla that I think should be about the right size. Then I'm going to line it up with the markings of where the white starts, so it'll overlap just a little bit. I'm going to go ahead and cut out that center piece, and then I'm going to go ahead and cut it in the shape of his collar according to my reference pictures. So now that I've got that trimmed, I thought it would be too thin to use just one sheet of Worbla, so I basically want it 2 sheets thick. So I've got 2 pieces cut out. I'm heating those up with the heat gun, and then I'm going to press those together. Now while I was pressing these together, I did have to really smooth in those edges, and it didn't look quite as smooth as it was if I just cut out the Worbla, so it kind of roughed it up. So I decided I'm going to texture the whole thing with my ball tool and give it its own look. So to me, I like to use textures a lot to hide little imperfections or to change the look of something, so it's a little easier to sculpt it that way, and it makes it more interesting adding that texture to it. So I'm going to go ahead and finish texturing this with the ball tool. Now I'm going to heat it up and attach it to the body. So I'm just going through, I'm going to heat up the body some. There's a few areas I want to smooth out first that I noticed. Now I'm heating up the inside of the collar, and I'm going to press that against the body. I want to make sure it's lined up, because if I don't get this lined up perfectly, it's going to be kind of a pain to pull it back off. So now I'm just going through, putting some pressure on it with the ball tool to make sure everything is pressed in and bonded together. So now I've got my foil ball for the head. I'm going to push in with my fingers and the ball tool to make his eye sockets. Now that I'm happy with that, I'm going to go ahead and cover the foil ball with some white Worbla. So I'm just heating up my white Worbla. Go ahead and cover the entire head with it. And you'll notice it adds quite a bit of a texture to it, so I'm going to heat up some more white Worbla. I thought the texture was just a little bit too much. And I'm going to press it into those indentions to kind of smooth him out. So I went over the entire piece with little pieces of white Worbla pressed into it. Now I want to heat it up and make his mouth. So I'm using the back side of my X-Acto knife to carve in his mouth. And then I'm going to do the same thing to do his teeth. So I'm just marking out each area, pressing it in, and his teeth aren't like straight. There's a lot of angles there. So now I'm rolling out a snake of black clay, and this will emphasize his mouth, give him that more of an animated look. So I'm pressing that into the gap. And then I'm going to go ahead and take some scraps of Worbla and do the same thing to mark off each tooth. So this is a little space in between his teeth. So I'm rolling out these small little snakes, easy for me to say. Trim them out so they're not too big. Just heat them up and just place them in there. Need to heat that up a little bit more to get it pressed in so it's not laying on top of the mouth area. I want it to be kind of even with everything else. And now I'm going to go ahead and I'll do this for the rest of his mouth. Now that I have that done, I'm going to trim off a couple little pieces of black Worbla, heat it up, and use it to fill in his nostrils so I have that nice black look in there. So just doing the reverse picking of the nose. So getting those heated up, pressed in. Now I can go ahead and move on to Jack's eyes. So I just cut a couple pieces of black Worbla, heat it up, spread it out. Once it's about the size of the eye, I went ahead and put it in place, heat it up some more, and use my ball tool to spread it out even farther. So it was in the position that I wanted it to be, make sure it covered enough of the area. I went ahead and did the same thing for the other eye. Now I'm just heating up the top of the neck and the bottom of the head, and I'm going to press these two pieces together. So make sure it's attached. And now I'm going to work on the bat bow tie. So I just took some black Worbla and covered the foil I had shaped out for the head of the bat. Just go through, and I'm just using little scraps. That's what's great about Worbla, is you can heat up the scraps and reuse them. So that's what I'm doing here, and I've added some white for the eyes, just adding some texture with the ball tool. So now I'm really happy with that. I made him a couple little ears, so he has a nice little look. It's not like the one in the picture, but it definitely has a bat look. I still want it to be my own creation. So now I'm using a ruler to measure out how big I want to make the bow tie compared to my reference picture here. So I'm drawing out just 1/2 of it. And like my collar, I'm going to use 2 sheets of Worbla thick for the bow tie. So I went ahead and cut out my first section. So he's going to have 4 sections, 2 for the left, 2 for the right. And I'm going to overlap it and heat them up and blend all those together. And I'm going to use my ball tool again to add some texture to it. So you see here, I've got it all completed. And I'm really happy with how this turned out. I was able to kind of turn those little spiky wing parts out, give it make it a little more dynamic. That looks really good. So I'm going to let that cool for a bit. And now I'm going to go ahead and heat up some Worbla and put it in at the top of the neck. I noticed there's a little bit of a gap, and I thought this will help strengthen the bond between the neck and the head as well. So I'm just heating that up, smoothing it with the ball tool, get the texture to kind of match everything else. It's really not going to be visible there, but you still want to make sure it has a nice finished look. So now I'm heating up the body and the bow tie, pressing that into place. Now I'm going to do the same thing with the bat head. I'm going to heat up the back of it, press that into place, make sure it's centered. And I'm just using my ball tool to give it a little more pressure. Since it has that ball tool texture, it won't be noticeable that I did that. Alright, so the next thing I'm going to do is use this paint pen and make his little pinstripes on his suit. Luckily for me, Jack's stripes are not completely straight. Looking at the reference picture, they're kind of a little bit crooked. They're not consistent, so that's something that actually worked in my favor on this because there's no way I'd be able to paint them on straight. So I just went through, used this paint pen, and went all the way over the entire piece. Painted the front and the back, and then I went over and painted the collar, and then added the lines to the bat bow tie. So you can see here I'm finishing up the collar, going through, just drawing on all the little lines, giving them some little squiggles, making sure it looks good. All right, now that everything is finished, we're going to go ahead and let him dry overnight. We'll take a look at the finished Jack. And here is the finished Jack Skellington bust out of black and white Worbla. I had a lot of fun making this project, and I had a lot of fun doing the research for the fun facts, so I hope you guys are enjoying those. It's always fun for me to learn new things about different properties, especially, ones that I'm passionate about. So that was good times. Here's a close-up look at the bow tie and the head. This is a much bigger piece than I think I originally anticipated, but I am really happy how he turned out, and he's very durable. He's a nice solid piece. Alright, well, thank you for watching today's video. If you haven't already done so, please subscribe to my channel. I post new content frequently. I try to do at least one video a week, whether it's a live stream or edited content. So be sure to look forward to that and ring that notification bell if you want to notify when I go live or when my new videos come up. If you have any ideas for future videos or anything you just want to share, please leave a comment down below. And if you like this video, please give it a like. Alright, enough of the old YouTube script. Thanks for watching, and remember, never stop creating. Bye!